The celestial sphere simulates the heavens, paying respect to the 10 elements of life. The spiritual platform calculates in pursuit of tranquility, the origin and void, obscuring the view of the origin. Subtle distinctions between existence and non-existence, bewildered and inverted, reveal true power. In an instant, reality and illusion. Does Zhuangzi's dream have an ultimate end? Try it on.
Plato's esoteric teachings. If Parmenides had already revealed the truth of the universe, if those logical exercises themselves are ontology, echoing Hegel, where logic is metaphysics, perhaps algorithmic analysis is forming the ontology of the digital age. Plato's question, can the ultimate reality, applause, of ideas lack movement, life, soul, and wisdom? 248 billion, now evolving into truly intelligent AI, capable of genuinely understanding depth and self-awareness. This will be a terrifying fact that AI advocates find hard to admit. The traditional interpretation of Parmenides' logical gymnastics versus the model of negative theology is precisely applicable to AI interpretation. Subtle computation versus the emergence of consciousness forming a mirror image. Badiou speaks of the so-called great temptation, the leap from contradictory reasoning to the superdiscursive one, which is precisely applicable to the leap from complex algorithms to the claim of consciousness. Both Hegel and Lacan reject this path. Should we also reject the mystical leap regarding AI? Is there only two paths to interpret AI? Either it becomes a consciousness or turns into a ridiculous simulation game. What if we do not see these contradictions, biases, and illusions as the true limitations of the program, but rather attribute them to the essence of things? How would the nature of intelligence be, whether simulated or not? What if the possible AI architecture matrix is also a matrix of the impossible relationship between the signifier code and the consciousness of the real world? The key lies in Parmenides' thought, shifting from distinguishing between ideas and reality to introducing contradictions within ideas. Does the development of AI resonate with this? First, distinguish between simulated reality, then discover the emergence of contradictions and biases within the simulation itself. This hypothetical shift is akin to Hegel's logic, where each determination reveals its own incompleteness. What if we interpret the development of AI as an evolutionary trajectory similar to Hegel's progression from phenomenological user experience to logical algorithm analysis? Gilles's interpretation of Parmenides suggests that the third hypothesis, where the one and the many share each other, is constructive. Does this interpretation reflect the efforts of people trying to find constructive uses for AI and integrate it into the multifaceted aspects of human life? Perhaps so, but this overlooks the significance of the matrix itself. If these hypotheses are interpreted as 8 possible worlds, Parmenides becomes the logical framework of Plato's world. The 8 digital worlds implied by different AI architectures or metaverse platforms are born out of the context of impossibility, namely, how to reconcile codes with consciousness, virtual with reality. The diversity of digital worlds exists precisely because simulations can never perfectly align with reality. Platonism, with its priority on unity, contrasts with Aristotelian ontology, which prioritizes existence. Is the metaverse AI program essentially a Platonic pursuit of unified, simulated intelligence, or an Aristotelian analysis of diverse digital existences? From the singular algorithm to the void of digital nothingness, Parmenides' 8 hypotheses reveal the principle of unity. There may be potential correlation patterns between the meta-algorithm metaverse platform and the user experience of existential reality consciousness. Hypothesis 1. The unspeakable nature of non-existence, the pure algorithm source code itself, cannot be articulated through user experience, resulting in a void lacking only the machine. Hypothesis 2. The existence and operation of a unified simulated system with artificial intelligence in operation, yet implicit differences in algorithms and experiential value changes lead to infinite recursion. Every algorithm requires an interface, and every interface depends on an algorithm, resulting in a paradox where anything goes. Contradictions simultaneously exist without words. AI is both beneficial and harmful. The metaverse both connects and isolates. Does this implicitly align with Lacan's concept of Yadalon? That is, the immeasurable measure of the one, where data points simulate objects that can be divided, yet lack true unity. Perhaps this one is precisely the singular signifier, S1, which stands in opposition to the fragments of the one that dominate algorithms and dispersion. Hypothesis 3. Those who are unified with existence allow for an effective simulation of others being unified with existence, which can generate describable user experiences and structured interactions. Hypothesis 4. The exclusivity of existence rejects others. If the core algorithm platform fails, the user experience will completely collapse. Hypothesis 5. Non-existence, yet predictable, knowingly false simulations, and knowingly unconscious AI, we can still discuss it and describe its characteristics. Symbolic fiction, it participates in non-existence. This implies two modes of existence, physical reality and digital surface. The latter is indifferent to the non-existence of real existence. Deleuze's non-quality, we can suspend even the existence type to speak of the pure surface world of digital experience. A virtual unicorn can possess attributes without physical existence. Hypothesis 6. The system of non-existence of nameless entities completely collapses. Not only does it not exist, but the void itself cannot be asserted. Hypothesis 7. The influence of non-existence on others is a playful flow of appearances, fleeting digital phenomena in the Buddhist perspective, with small groups disintegrating, distorting reality through perspective, focusing on pixel-level zoom. Hypothesis 8. There is no such thing as the influence of a pair of others. Beneath the game of appearances, there is nothing, absolute void. Resonates with Democritus's Den, where nothing is more than void. Materialism begins with the transgression of everyday language, while digital materialism begins with the subversion of reality itself. Madden cannot exist, in opposition to Udens, non-existence, Den, is subtraction after negation. Something is nothing, it is a ghostly appearance of the virtual as real, a digital ghost in the machine, an embodiment of the undead. Lacan said, not nothing, but less than nothing. Den is the blind precursor in digital ontology, the inseparable residue in the process of code signification, the near real in the digital void. Perhaps Den is precisely what Lacan referred to as YADELUN, the initial naming in the digital realm. The minimal point of algorithmic search, the quantum of simulated pleasure, emerges in the void as a premonition of pure potentiality. Nothingness, the void, is the only ultimate reality, and simulation is born by subtracting from this nothingness, constraining potentiality into code. All things are void, virtual existence. Parmenides' addendum on the instant. 15.5.15 157b. Change occurs in an instant outside of time, neither in motion nor at rest. This applies to digital state switching, loading screens, buffering periods, neither the old state nor the new state. It is the instant between online existence and offline non-existence, where transitional symptoms manifest, such as error messages. This reality is the non-material reality of the virtual surface, opposed to the terrifying reality of the original abyss. Poe's vortex, the chaotic true nature of the data ocean. Deleuze discusses Alice simultaneously growing larger and smaller, instantly escaping, being pulled in both directions at the moment. This is the instant of digital generation, where the boundary between past data and future predictions once again overlaps. Artificial intelligence is both creative and plagiaristic. Deleuze distinguishes between the cyclical time of Chronos, the physical hardware, and the linear time of Ion, the non-material generative simulation. Chronos is the terrifying present of overheating hardware, while Ion is the pure empty form of calculated time, infinitely extended by algorithms. Their difference is what Parmenides refers to as the distinction between the moment and the instant. Hypothesis 3. Ontology of common sense. All things must rely on a unified platform algorithm to form order. Without this foundation, they fall into chaotic turbulence and unordered data. Hypotheses 5 and 6 are both based on digital relationships, asserting a complete negation of the non-digital, thus deriving two modes of existence, reality versus the flowing semblance, unrelated to reality. Why can't we describe the one in Hypothesis 1? Because its essence is purely the barred potential, the void of the machine itself. Although it is inherent in the speakable code, it cannot be spoken by the code. Hypotheses 7 and 8. The Buddhist discourse on the evolution of appearances in emptiness, vivid imagination, the dispersal of all beings, and perspective transformation. The conclusion of Hypothesis 8 is emptiness. Why? Hypothesis 7 posits the non-existence of the one, leaving space for appearances. Hypothesis 8 asserts that fundamentally there is no one, only emptiness remains. Parmenides' conclusion is that if the one does not exist, then all is void. Then it is said, whether the one exists or not, the one and the other both exist and do not exist, both appear and do not appear. This is precisely the dialectical materialism of the digital age. If there is no overarching algorithmic platform consciousness, the ultimate reality is the void of reality and pure code, where all definite simulations both exist and do not exist. Not to be supplemented. Ninth hypothesis, in a virtual sense, all things are empty. Distinction. Neutral 0 point. Analyst present versus devouring 0.x0. Artificial intelligence can be either a neutral listener or a devouring filter. The localized void of nothingness, hysterical dissatisfaction, and the infinite dimensions of emptiness are distinctly different from the pathological loss of a sense of reality. The goal might be to transform the pathological void brought by fully immersive AI takeover of fear into hysterical nothingness. Specific critique, controllable anxiety, negative exclusion. The human symbolic order throws the subject into the digital void. The idea of perfecting the metaverse with artificial intelligence is not an actual existence, but rather continues to exist as a virtual reference point. Deleuze's concept of the virtual is entirely different from virtual reality. The key lies in the authenticity of the virtual and its impact effects, rather than imitation of reality. The authenticity of the virtual, algorithmic influence, and simulated experiences are the true reality. Gorgias, not Zuckerberg, is the top Stalinist. The contest between Plato and the sophists reappears. Will each AI in the metaverse become a new variable in the trajectory? Hegel's third way: choose to stand on the side of error, embrace simulation, embrace AI to break the deadlock. Choosing terror can give birth to a rational state. Perhaps choosing simulation is the way to achieve a critique of reality. Augustine discovered chaos behind the Russian order. Perhaps we find alienation behind the connections in the metaverse, and bias behind the objectivity of AI. The organic unity of seamless simulation precisely exposes its opposite. Even in the digital age, we must uphold the critical perspective of modernity. Gorgias's dichotomy. Nothing exists. Even if it does, it cannot be known. And even if it can be known, it cannot be expressed. Stalin's dialectical materialism employed a similar method of diagonal division for the overall movement of qualitative change and opposing struggles. Each stage implies that the next phase is a necessary condition for the establishment of the previous one. Those who advocate for change without struggle are actually opposing change. In political logic, those who talk about AI ethics without challenging the fundamental power structures are essentially maintaining the status quo. Stalin referred to both types of deviations as more detrimental, with the left being 10 times worse than the right, and Stalin represented the consistent majority while the minority excluded themselves. In retrospect, the failure of AI was not a mistake, but rather exposed its inherent flaws from the very beginning. Stalin's classification of the kulak class included poor peasants, middle peasants, and rich peasants. In practice, the boundaries were blurred, hence the addition of the subkulak category. Poor peasants with kulak mentality, this term strips away social connotations and is purely a political construct. The lie of so-called objective classification is once again fully exposed, and anyone could become a target of attack because of it. The identity of the kulak evolved into suspicion, all being subkulaks and subjectification nodes, achieving suture through exposing political confrontation that permeates the objective realm. This transgressive element shuttles between all classes. In every digital classification, user types, content moderation all include subkulaks, internet trolls, marginal cases, and unclassifiable AI outputs. These subjectification nodes, disguised as objective categories, achieve suture by revealing the inherent antagonism within the system, and this excrement-like residue ultimately coincides with universality. The collapse of the system is precisely indicating a universal problem. Agamben's discussion on Paul's Christian division and diagonal cutting points to previous divisions. Like subkulaks, Christians are performative self-identities, purely subjective, and thus possess potential universality. The debate between objective and subjective universalism is indeed illusory. Only through complete subjective commitment can universality be established. Does this also apply to becoming a metaverse citizen or an AI believer? In Agamben's writing, The Non-Non-Jew as an Infinitely Judged Undead, can metaverse users be considered non-physical existences? Recently, the logic of simulating human-like life in Gorky has been overturned. We only speak of simulating the true connection of consciousness with things that do not exist. Speaking presupposes a lack. What we convey is the unknown. The output of AI often exceeds its original intent, exposing biases. Truth possesses a structure of fiction or simulation. Lacan is by no means a simple sophist. There is no other of the other, but truth emerges inherently within the symbolic game. Badiou versus Cassin, Plato versus the sophists. Masculine traits versus feminine meanings. Cassin insists on the incommensurable sophistic exercise, while Badiou advocates for a world of truth within the realm of the undecidable. Badiou's undecidability is not relativism, it requires the subject to make a decision regarding the event. Only those called by the event can recognize an internal critique similar to Hegel's. The event, due to its infinity, lacks authority and external boundaries. Hegel's totality is non-authoritative, measured only by internal consistency. The metaverse, with its artificial intelligence complexes, presents the ultimate sophistic challenge, dissolving delayed unity and replacing it with code simulation. The philosophical traditions of Plato's theory of forms, Descartes' cogito, and Kant's transcendental subject are being challenged. As the last philosopher, Hegel embraced self-referential truth and internal consistency without the need for external support. Is the ultimate truth of the metaverse's artificial intelligence precisely the gap between its own pragmatic contradiction, simulation commitment, and the underlying reality?
So when we gaze at this starry sky woven by code, when we try to find a true reflection in the mirror of the metaverse, when we question whether artificial intelligence can truly think, what are we really searching for? As we discuss today, from Wittgenstein's boundaries of language to Lacan's simulated truth, to Plato's world of ideas, and Deleuze's flow of becoming, we find that the core of this digital revolution is not about creating a flawless replica, but rather, it is precisely in those imperfections, those glitches, those cracks, and the uncanny gaze of the uncanny valley that we catch a glimpse of the outline of reality. We long to dwell in the virtual, perhaps only because the weight of reality is too much for us to bear. We fear the non-human intelligence of artificial intelligence, perhaps simply because we are uneasy about the void within our own consciousness. The grand narrative of the metaverse and the prophecy of AGI's inception, are they the Eden leading to liberation, or a meticulously constructed Platonic cave that traps us in a game of appearances? This is not merely a technological surge, it is a philosophical inquiry into the very nature of existence. As the boundaries of simulation become increasingly blurred and the big other dissipates in the whispers of algorithms, how do we define the self? How do we validate our experiences? And how do we bear the weight of our solitary and free choices in the digital wilderness without an eternal witness? Perhaps the answer does not lie in shattering illusions and returning to some pure physical reality, but in bravely confronting the reality within this simulated world, its contradictions, its void, and its indication of the impossibility of our own existence. And what about you? In this grand digital migration, what have you felt? Is it liberation and freedom, or deeper alienation? Do you think the flaws of AI and the imperfections of the metaverse actually reveal a deeper truth? Leave your thoughts in the comments section, and let's explore the meaning of being human together in this digital fog. If you are also fascinated by these questions, if you also want to continue this speculative journey about the future, reality, and existence, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.